Hey gang, Ken Nordberg here, Dr. Ken Nordberg. My son John and I are up here in our deer country, up near the Canadian border in Minnesota. And you see a little camp here, a little small tent, just a two-man tent. The rest of the gang was up here already last weekend doing most of their scouting, and they do most of their hunt that direction. And John and I and the grandson do most of our hunting in that direction. We got lots of scouting to do. As soon as we leave camp here, we're heading back on a trail right behind camp here. Check that area out. It always looked good to us for buck hunting, but we've never gotten one back there, but we're trying to change that this year. So we're going to give that a good look. Maybe we'll see you in a little bit here after we get in here, and if we check it, we find some interesting buck signs, we'll stop and talk about it. But glad to have you along. During the next 3-4 days, we'll be stopping a lot, and you'll see more about what we found up here on this scouting trip. Good to see you.
Okay.
Well, here we found a bed, and it's a really good sized bed. We haven't seen a lot of sign in the last few days. Leaves have been pouring down in this area, and it's covering up trail sign like tracks. We found a track a little ways back there. It was about 3 5/8 inch in length, which would indicate it was probably made by a 2.5-year-old buck. Now we found a bed. This is definitely a bed. See the way the grass is pressed down like that? And it's been used recently because this grass will spring up again in no time, and you won't see the bed at all. But it extends from back here to back there. That's a good sized deer. It's not a huge buck, but it's certainly bigger than a doe. This thing is more than, I would say it's at least 42 inches long, which would put it in the class with a 2.5-year-old buck. And that kind of goes with the track that we found there. But he's laid here, the back part here, his head end on that side. See, it's all pressed down. If we came by here tomorrow, you probably wouldn't notice it. A lot of that grass will be sprung up. So this is a fresh bed. We maybe even disturbed this deer on the way in here, and he's left the area. But that's definitely deer sign there. That's the kind of sign a lot of hunters never notice. I remember one year my son Ken and I found a bed like that, and on opening morning he got the deer, and it was a 2.5-year-old 8-point buck. So that's an important deer sign. The buck's been bedding here for probably a couple of reasons. One is, look at the cover around this area. Bucks love to lay where there's really dense, woody cover all around. A lot of windfalls here. Pretty hard for anything as large as a human or a wolf even to sneak through here without a deer laying here hearing it. And boy, he can go in many directions here and be lost in a matter of 2-3 jumps. Another thing he probably likes it here, another reason, is that there's grass. This is a graze area. It's a limited graze area, but that's typical of a buck bedding area. And probably if we check this area again later on, maybe when there's snow on the ground, we'd find a number of beds in the area. Buck bedding areas are usually small, only about 1 acre or 2 in size. Later on, when we get close to the time when does are in heat, they'll start making antler rubs within their bedding areas, whole clusters of them. I've seen as many as 30 of them in a 1 or 2 acre area. Sure sign that it's a buck bedding area. And besides beds and the larger droppings that are 3/4 to 5/8 of an inch. A 2.5-year-old buck can make 5/8 inch droppings, but anything bigger than 1/2 inches is bucks only. So that track we saw plus this bed means a 2.5-year-old buck is living and bedding right here in this area. So if hunting is tough, this would be a good spot to lay and wait in a ground level stand site, or one of those new little portable blinds, or maybe a tree stand over that way somewhere. It would be a good one. Kind of depends on wind direction too. Right now, north is that way. If we have a south wind, you'd want to be over on that side. We have south winds a lot on opening weekends. If you have a west wind, you want to be over this way. there's some good trees here, but you wouldn't want to be too high unless you're in an evergreen, because you look out over in that horizon there. If you get too high, your silhouette is going to be really obvious to deer. If you hunt in this area from a tree stand, you probably wouldn't want to be up more than about 6-7 feet. That would be plenty high. Over in this direction, let's say at an east wind, that'd be excellent back cover. You know, you could be in a tree pretty high over there and not be seen because of all that evergreen cover growing really tall in that area. But we don't get a lot of east winds here. I remember one deer season we had an east wind for a whole week. And that would have been a good area to stand for a stand in that time of the day. One of the things, though, you have to keep track of is that bucks this size are almost always chased from their own home ranges by dominant breeding bucks by the time breeding begins. So he might not be here. This is one of the reasons we like to begin scouting daily on day 3 of a hunting season, because by that time, if this buck has been chased out, we can come to this area and find no sign whatsoever of the deer here. So we want to be sure about that. Now, deer numbers are way down this year. We probably have about 4 or 5 dominant breeding bucks in the entire 4 to 5 square mile that we hunt here. And a lot of it looks just like this. There's lots of areas that dominant breeding bucks don't bother to check out. Like if there's no does in this area, this 2.5-year-old could live here without being troubled by the dominant breeding buck. And he could very well be here while breeding is in progress. So it's a good idea. Now that we know about this particular buck, we're going to keep an eye on this area. And it might be a place where we'll take a decent buck this year. He'll be a buck with about 14, maybe 16-inch spread, and he'll be a 6 to 8 pointer. And good enough if the hunting is tough. And certainly it'll taste good. Well, we'll go down the trail a little more and see what else we can find here. But this is good deer sign. You see, a lot of hunters wouldn't notice that. You wouldn't realize how important that is. But just finding a single trail or a bed like that can lead to a successful hunt.